I'm going to show you a video of the incident. It's edited because of the use of it in court later, but this is edited and we feel comfortable releasing this part. Peggy, you want to play that video? Is everybody ready for this? Yes. Peggy, Peggy, can you pause it for 1 second? I just want to show you this. This is where the first shooter is in this area here. The police are back here. There's their car. Police are back behind this sign. Third shooter's back along here somewhere wearing some pink shorts. Barnes is wearing some pink shorts. Go ahead, Peg. Okay, Peg.
Would you please play it again?
I'm sorry.
Would you please play it one more time?
Do it again, Peg, for him. That's the shooter coming towards you right now. Okay, Peggy, let's see that. I just want to make a real quick comment before Peggy pulls up the rest of this. I want to make it very clear, and I want to send a very clear message to the public. If you think you can do this in Cincinnati and get away with it, you have the wrong city. And I can tell you this, you have the wrong prosecutor, because as long as I'm here, I met with the mayor before and discussed this office is not going to put up with it. I firmly believe the mayor's not going to put up with it. And if you want to carry a gun in Cincinnati, commit crimes, be prepared to go to jail for the rest of your life, because that's what's going to happen. We will do everything in our power to get you off the streets forever. Anyway, Peggy, show them who we've got. This is the first shooter. Go ahead, Peggy. The chief just told me there's a flashlight on his gun, like, if you can see the light. Second shooter, this is the guy wearing the pink shorts running towards the camera.
You show the first shooter again.
Go ahead, Patty. That's him. You can see him leaning over the back of that car firing. That is not a flashlight. That's a muzzle flash. That's him putting the gun back in his belt and leaving the scene. I want to reiterate something I've said a long time. The vast, vast majority of people in this city are law-abiding, good people. We are dealing with a small subset that are committing an incredible amount of crime. All you have to do is look at their record. I mean, I don't know how many felony arrests you have or misdemeanor arrests you have, but that is astounding to me, the level of trouble these two have been in prior to this. And I consider it our job to identify these violent felons and put them in jail as long as we can. I know it sounds cold, but that's the only thing that's going to work. And I can tell you that from over 35 years of experience, that is it. Anyway, before I answer any questions, I'm going to ask the mayor to come up here and say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I first want to say a huge thank you to our homicide department, who worked quickly and professionally and effectively to identify these two shooters. I want to thank Joe Deters and the prosecutors who worked on this to get them in front of the grand jury and to get these indictments. This is absolutely inexcusable in our city. We will work hard to prevent this kind of gun violence in the future. If you engage in this kind of activity, we will find you and we will prosecute you and you will go to jail for a very, very long time. That is our commitment to the public.
Chief, do you want to say something?
Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you again to Joe Deters and his office and his staff for all the hard work they've done the last few days, and to our homicide unit. The skill set there is second to none, and that's why they were able to bring this to the point where we're at today with these indictments. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, is it our understanding they were shooting at each other, or was one of them just trying
The
to?
second one, I don't know the motivation, shooting towards each other. The second shooter was shooting towards the second shot, the first shot's ringing out. And if you see, and you guys are going to have a copy of this, how soon, Amy?
I mean, within an hour.
Okay, we'll get you guys a copy of what we just showed you, and I'm sure you'll blow it up and do all that stuff you guys do. But there's a physical altercation, and you can see the flashlight on the gun, or the light on the gun, during this altercation, and then he just opens fire. Quite frankly, I am shocked that no one was killed in this.
Is it possible the second shooter was trying to stop the person who was, according to the description, shooting indiscriminately?
Self-defense.
Yeah.
Tell that to a jury. I don't buy that for a second. This is some kind of petty turf thing that they had a beef about, and they put innocent people's lives in jeopardy by doing this. And if he wants to claim self-defense, go ahead.
So they did know each other then?
I don't know if they knew each other. They just knew there's two different groups there, one from the west side and one from downtown.
Would you classify it as gang activity, Joe?
No, I mean, Cincinnati's gang activity is not like Los Angeles's gang activity. I mean, it's just not the same. It's not even fair to compare it to that.
Not the same, but still, people could have died, and this was an awful situation.
Absolutely.
So
A lot of people could have died. And if it wasn't for the police officer, and by the way, I mentioned to the mayor and the city manager that I was going to let you guys know this, he did hit the first shooter with when he fired his shot.
Is that what stopped the officer? I mean, is that what stopped the first shooter? Is that what this guy?
I don't know if it stopped. It was after he shot. Now, whether he was going to shoot some more, I don't know. I don't know if he had any more rounds left. But in my humble opinion, he acted heroically and quite possibly stopped an absolute massacre.
You showed the number of arrests that these two have. You mentioned that we're talking about a small percentage of the population
Yep.
involved in this kind of violence. So
Yep.
do we have an issue with clashing groups in this city putting the rest of us at risk?
I don't think so. I think we just have some people here, and this is not unique to Cincinnati. There is a small group of violent criminals that feel empowered to behave like this. How could you do this in front of a police car and two uniformed officers are standing right there? I mean, it's incredibly, people want to say brazen. I think it's indicative of somebody who shouldn't be walking on their streets. If somebody does that kind of stuff, and look, that happened on Main Street. We have innocent people getting killed by random gunfire. It happens, and it's not fair.
How quickly were you all able to zero in on these two suspects and get this case to the grand jury?
The case went to the grand jury this morning, and they acted very quickly. Cincinnati Homicide was on this, thanks to the chief and the mayor and city administration. They were all over this thing, and they made our job very easy.
Joe, a couple of quick questions. Do you know, first of all, where the suspect was shot? Which suspect was shot?
The first suspect, the first shooter, was shot in the leg.
Okay. And then, which suspect is that?
The first one. The first one you see shooting. The one with the flashlight on the gun.
And these guys are currently under arrest?
Yes, they're in a justice center right now. The second shooter was apprehended, I think, last night. Yeah,
And when was the first shooter apprehended?
two days ago.
Can you clarify, I'm confused about calling this a petty dispute between these two shooters, but it's.
Well, it's not petty when there's gunfire. I'm sorry.
It just sounds like there's no evidence that they knew each other. So it seems like the first altercation with the first shooter clearly was involved in some kind of argument with someone and started shooting indiscriminately as described. The other person is on the other side of the street and starts shooting in that direction. I guess, like, what evidence is there that they were fighting with each other? If they weren't talking and there's no evidence they knew each other beforehand.
We are prohibited from discussing their statements, and I can't discuss their statements.
Okay, but your statement was that this was a petty dispute between them. So I'm
That's
asking
what I
your
believe.
statement.
That's what I believe.
So there's evidence that they
Yeah,
were in a dispute.
but I can't talk about anything they said.
But they have spoken.
Who?
The suspects.
Oh, yeah.
Chief, let me, just go, please.
What you all were able to catch these quick, obviously there were officers there. Is that the key piece that led to the suspect? Were there a lot of tips? Is it the fact that you had all the cameras there?
Camera.
If the city had more cameras and the high-def cameras that I know the mayor has talked about bringing to Central Business District and perhaps other, would that help with this type of case?
I think it would help. I don't have any doubt it would help. But if you let this stuff go unchecked, you can't buy enough cameras to fix this. You just can't. So it's nice having the evidence, but I'd rather people lived, and were able to enjoy the city.
Chief, a real quick question, if you don't mind, Joe.
Sure, no
Chief
problem.
Fiji, for a second, we were down on Main Street earlier this morning, seeing the signs put up about no parking Friday and Saturday nights and through the end of the year. So a pretty extreme measure. Talked to some folks, some support that, some question it. What's the rationale at this point?
So the rationale is to provide as much safety as we can for the visitors down on Main Street. As you could see in the video there was a large group of pedestrian traffic there, some vehicular traffic. So it's trying to keep some of that from intermingling in the event that we have a large crowd. So we're taking many steps. That's one of them.
And I know you're going to talk about this, I assume, later this afternoon
Correct.
at CIS, but this weekend's huge. You have the Bengals coming to town, you got FC, there are lots of people spill into OTR. Just what's the messaging there? I'm sure you're encouraging folks to come down and have a great time, and maybe the mayor would weigh in too, but this is a kind of an unnerving period. What's your message?
So very simply, I'll state 2 points that I want to make, and we will go into more detail later today. The first one is there will be an increased police presence, so people should feel safe coming downtown, OTR, the banks, wherever. There will be an increased police presence. Secondly is people need to be aware of their surroundings. Part of their safety, they need to own part of their own safety. And so they just need to be aware of what's going on around them. If something doesn't feel right, say something to the closest police officer or remove yourself from the area.
And Mayor, I don't know if you you want to weigh in on that, because it's a big weekend.
It's a big weekend, and we are ready as a city. We're deploying CPD resources. We're deploying the health department. We're deploying DPS and fire. All city facilities are on alert, and the strategy we have to ensure that from the banks through Main Street is safe, we have full confidence in, and folks who are enjoying this weekend can have full confidence in that.
Chief, can you talk about the possibility of a third shooter in this situation and what the status of that investigation?
No, not at this time.
Chief, are you able to tell, or how can you tell, who shot whom?
It
There were
doesn't
so
matter.
many shots fired.
It doesn't matter. If you shoot in a crowd, you're committing felonious assault against that crowd.
Well, there were counts here, though, related to each of the
We,
shots, I'm assuming.
we use the ones that were hit. If you take the time, you can count the shots they fired, and every shot is a felonious assault.
Are you able to tell which people shot which victims?
No, there are all the wounds were through and through.
Joe, do you know on the guns, I mean, clearly this, are they community guns, or do we know where the guns came from? Are you searching them back, or?
Doesn't matter. No,
Well,
it
maybe
doesn't,
you don't
look,
know.
It
look,
matters if they're gonna be used again.
Yeah, that's
Look.
what.
Joe, if you could
Joe,
step
you
in front
can
of
say
that.
yeah. The weapon isn't the issue, okay? There's lots of law-abiding citizens that have guns, all right? Cars aren't the issue. When people drive through a crowd, like somebody took a car and drove through that crowd and killed 20 people, is the car the problem? Is the knife the problem? Okay, it's not. We have to go after the people that are willing to use these implements to commit crime. I mean, it's like we're trying to kill a cancer and you just kill the entire body. There's no, why don't we use a laser and go after the ones that are the problem? And that's my, I can't speak for anybody else up here. That's what I think.
Well, I'm not making a comment about the gun debate. This is just about these specific guns. Did they, where did
I don't have any idea.
They shouldn't have them, clearly, right?
Look, I can walk out right now and get a gun. I could get a gun in an hour downtown if you want a gun.
Chief, maybe you can address the question, have the guns been recovered? And there's been a lot of talk with CJIC about using new technology to trace how many other crimes they've been used in. So I think there is concern about these specific weapons, if you have any information.
I will just say that the indictment of these two and the investigation around that continues. The investigation continues. Part of that will be our CJIC's role in looking at the history of these guns. But to say right here today what they've been involved in or who they belong to is very, very premature.
So you have recovered the firearms?
It's under investigation.
Chief, if these are not gangs, how confident are you that your officers have a handle on groups that are clashing and potentially conflicting in public areas like this?
So I think one of the roles of our police officers, both from the assignments such as CJIC or the neighborhood officers, the beat officers, is to become familiar with people in their area of responsibility. And we get a lot of intelligence type information from that knowledge. Just know the people on your beat. Know who is causing the problems, who is not. Constantly exchanging intelligence information amongst the districts to make sure that we know what's going on in each area of the city and how it may affect another area.
So are you confident they have a handle?
Yes.
Understanding?
Yes, absolutely.
Chief, there have been reports of people bringing out grills on the sidewalks in that area during the weekends, of opening up their back hatches and playing loud music, basically having a street fair unauthorized. Were the police hard enough on these folks to clear that area in the past?
So my response to that is come to the press conference at 4 o'clock, 4:15 today, and we will get into more detail on that. This was about the indictments here today.
Joe, with that in mind, can I ask you quickly, Les, from my vantage point? You talk about deterrence, the importance of that. It seems like some people, that message just goes in one ear and out the other. How do you get that message into the community that may be prone to be doing these kinds of activities? Say, look, you fire the gun and it's over the rhine or wherever, you're going to spend a long time in jail. I would think that would deter somebody, but clearly it's not helping at this point.
Well, about 13 months ago, we stopped all plea bargains on gun cases in this office. And we have probably placed over 50 people in state prison right now that have used guns in Cincinnati. to commit a crime. And we're not going to stop. At least while I'm here, we're not going to stop.
And that this would be an example of that. If this goes through the process, no plea bargain.
There's no plea bargains on gun cases. And by the way, for your information, the case was rolled to Judge Giz, Leslie Giz, and they will be arraigned Thursday at 9 a.m. in her courtroom.
Joe, do you feel like you're trying to empty a sinking boat with a spoon here?
No, I know that it can be effective, and I know that if we work together to identify who's causing the problem, it can be very effective. And that's, all we can do. There's three prongs to this. The police, who are doing a great job, the prosecutors, and then you got the judges. I can't control the police. I can't control the judges. I can just control the cases the cops bring to us. And, we're ultimately at the mercy of judges that decide what to do with these people.
Mayor, does the speed of the arrest, the indictment, thanks to the cameras and everything, does that change or potentially alter how you disperse the ARPA funds in terms of putting more cameras and where you put them?
Yeah, I completely agree with Joe that cameras are an important tool in order to get evidence to prosecute folks. But the ARPA funds that we are deploying are specific to, number one, making sure that we have enough resources for police in order to do their job, but also that we're intervening before this violence happens. Of course, law enforcement deterrence is a critical part of this. And if you fire into a crowd, you're going to jail for a very, very long time. But a lot of the ARPA dollars we are deploying is also looking at community building and trying to give folks an opportunity to not pick up a gun and better their life.
Aside from the fifth